Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Fit and Focused for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. My name is Shurina. I'm a brain performance coach, someone who has a huge passion for helping you guys to learn how to use your brain better using different lifestyle, nutrition, behavior, protocols, the design of the environment where you live and work in, all of that on the purpose to help you use your brain in a better, in a smarter, in a more effective way to feel your best, look your best, and do your absolute best. The brain can do so many amazing things. And, I don't know about you, but for the majority of my years, I haven't been using my brain in the most effective way. And I suffered a lot, went through a lot of repeating patterns in my life. Now it seems so obvious to me because I feel like I have this new understanding of my brain and I'm more aware of every single thing that it does. It's kind of even freaky to feel that self-aware and in a more understanding way about the brain, right? And seeing all these patterns that I lived through and I didn't work out them for quite a long time. Like, how did that happen? Now with this knowledge about the brain, I know that if I were to put my knowledge into that hat 10 years ago, even, that my whole journey would go in a quite different way. So the brain can do so much more, and we are yet to discover how to use it to its most potential, right? It's not that, sometimes you hear we use only, 10% of our brain's capacity. So some people thought that maybe we didn't use parts of the brain. No, it's probably the fact that we just don't practice things to maximize its capacity to deliver certain results, not because we don't use all the neurons, but because we don't know how to operate it in the best way to, for example, learn things faster or memorize things faster, right? Or to adjust our emotions and our stress with certain practices so we make progress and persevere and deliver results better and faster. But anyhow, that's again a little bit of intro of why you're here, why I'm here. And remote work, digital nomads, I've been remote my whole life and I've been a digital nomad for the past 12 years. And before that I was a student, still young. So I'm very passionate about remote world of work because it allows us to have so many more freedoms. And digital nomad world, we really are becoming citizens of the world, not of one country, but of the world. And that's like my dream coming true, the dreams that I had since I was a kid. So anyhow, welcome to the show. And today you're going to learn quite an interesting thing about why you should really reconsider eating processed and junky foods with a lot of different ingredients and flavors and processed in such a way that it's so flavor bursting and we find it so delicious and tasty and irresistible and probably even addictive, right? Why, even though those foods are bad for us, why do we still want them so much? And the second thing that you will understand today and maybe reconsider your relationship and the frequency with what you consume those desserts or snacks or junk foods, however you call certain suboptimal foods, you'll understand why they make you and how they make you a less happy person, a person who's just never satisfied and more cranky than optimistic and happy and at peace and smiling. You'll understand just in a few minutes how it all works and how by creating those foods, food industry actually robbed people of their mental peace and health and happiness that we were naturally designed to have. So how does it work? Our dopamine system the one that gives us a feeling of satisfaction when we get a reward. And obviously food is one of the most powerful, one of the most important rewards in animal kingdom, because with food come nourishment, come nutrition, and that's one of the major conditions of our survival, getting that nourishment, getting that nutrition, right? So our dopamine system, the system that is in charge of seeking rewards, so our dopamine system is very sensitive and acutely aware of what kind of foods we eat and what kind of nutrients we get. And you see, when we evolved with all the unprocessed foods, our dopamine system was really cool system. It was very helpful. We would get higher dopamine hits, or so to speak, we would have more pleasure when we find foods that would have more calories, that would have more of certain essential nutrients like proteins, right? That would have more of certain essential fats or carbohydrates. When the food was richer in nutrition and in flavor, and it was easier to consume and to get those calories, because remember that digestion also requires energy. So the less of that energy you get to spend on digestion, so from the perspective of our brain, that food is more valuable, because now for less energy investment, you get more energy return on that investment, right? So it's kind of like you're getting more in your calorie and nutrition bank balance when the food is easier to process, like fruit, for example, right? Compared to, let's say, an animal running in the wild. Like you gotta kill that animal, you gotta cook it, right? And that's how you get your protein. So long story short, our dopamine, our reward seeking chemical, was designed that way. So when we get more nourishment from a piece of food, we would get more dopamine hit, or we would feel more rewarded. We would feel more pleasure because we got this nutrition reward. And it was designed that way. So you seek out more of those foods and you get your nourishment, your nutrition requirements faster and with less energy spendings. And when the food was unprocessed, it worked beautifully, because all the foods that were providing us a lot of nutrition were good for us. They didn't kill us, they didn't poison us. We got a lot of nutrition. The easier the better. And so we would get more nutrients, and our dopamine system, again, it was working beautifully. More nutrition meant more pleasure, and then from that meant more health, more survival chances. So for now, we have that more nutritious foods, at least from the perspective of our brain, less energy spent on getting that food, on getting those calories, on getting those nutrients. More nutrients we get, and we get more or higher pleasure hit, right? Now, modern days, food chemists and food scientists of all sorts, they learned how to manufacture food using real humans and also sometimes animals like mice as subjects. They test on them different foods and see how much pleasure, how much reward we people get. And so a lot of foods are manufactured through the combination of added calories or certain textures that give our brain a perception of more nutrition, certain flavors, again, certain aromas that give the perception of more nutrition, of more rewarding experience overall. So food scientists, they figure out a way how to manufacture foods that really give us a lot more dopamine. First of all, they load them with calories, or at least with flavors and aromas, and sometimes all kinds of vitamins and minerals. More often than not, of course, when it comes to junk food or dessert, there are no vitamins and minerals. So food scientists, they figured out how to manufacture foods that would give us pleasure and probably a lot of calories, but not so much of the essential nutrients like protein or essential fats or even things like fiber or vitamins and minerals, right? They hit some aspect of that pleasurable experience. Calories, energy is major one. And you get this now high dopamine hit. The higher the better. Food scientists always are working on the way how to hit your dopamine even higher. And so before we learned that in prehistoric time, well, not prehistoric, but when we didn't have processed foods, higher dopamine hit meant higher nutrition, and it was better for our survival. Now we get a much higher that would occur naturally dopamine hit from all these manufactured foods. And your dopamine system still works the same. The higher the hit, the more of these foods you need to seek. That's how your brain works. That's why those foods are so irresistible and you develop cravings for them. Not so much for unprocessed food after that, right? Until you rewire that back. So you get this higher and higher dopamine hit that you would never get from natural foods. Like natural and processed foods will never deliver you quite that dopamine, that pleasure hit that happens almost instantly, really fast. The speed also important, right? And so you get this higher dopamine hit very easily because eating processed food is very easy. And one of the, again, aspects of that dopamine hit is because those calories are delivered super easy. But then when you start working on hard things in life, and life does not give you all that much pleasure when you're working on things, be that business or relationships, or even just simply existing in your daily life, you don't get that much dopamine hit, right? And so that's why now your dopamine levels by all these processed foods, all these easy calories and all this easy satisfaction, your dopamine system, what they call in neuroscience, is upregulated. And it means that you need more dopamine to just feel base level of happiness. But the thing is, real life doesn't work like that. You're not going to be hit with all kind of pleasures just by living and by eating unprocessed foods or working on things, right? That dopamine going to be harder to get and not all that high. And you start to feel overall not that happy and not that satisfied. Your brain knows how to feel much, much better with that processed food and those higher dopamine hits. That's why also drugs make you overall a very unhappy person. Like it gives you the hit, but then you need more and more to get that hit of pleasure. But then overall, your daily life becomes kind of a very unhappy experience because now your brain got this pleasure for one reason or the other. You got this dopamine going, but real life struggles, work, challenges, they do not offer that. And you start wondering, like, what's wrong with my life? What's wrong with me? Why am I, so cranky and unhappy and anxious? And sometimes you don't start wonder, but you just feel that way, like life kind of sucks. And that all happens because of that adjustment in your brain chemistry that you basically, with that junk food and also if you do recreational drugs, you basically taught your brain that there is this easy source of pleasure, and your dopamine system was evolved that way that usually good things would bring you that dopamine hit. So your brain kind of seeking that, it must be good for us, but it isn't. And what happens is what I've described, your real life that doesn't bring you all this many rewards and easy rewards and fast rewards and these pleasures, you start to feel kind of, what's wrong with that? I'm not feeling happy. I'm not feeling all that good. And you also start seeking those easier, faster rewards in your life, something that can give you pleasure like right now. You don't have time to work for it for days, weeks, months, and years. You need it right now to get that high. And that's why you start also engaging with life in a way to seek faster reward instead of working harder for something that might require more effort, more time, but will give you overall much more balanced and rewarding life, meaningful life experience. And that's how eating a lot of these processed foods or drinking a lot of stuff with added sugars or these added sugars everywhere, giving you that pleasure, your base level of happiness without those substances and without all these dopamine stimulating foods and drinks, so your base level of happiness start to feel like an unhappy place. And again, that's not necessarily because the place got worse, not at all. It's just because you taught your brain to go for an easy reward, to get that easy reward, and you get those high hits of pleasure, and then your real life start to feel like it sucks, even though nothing really changed about your real life. It's just the perception, and perception is everything, guys, changed because of these changes in your brain chemistry. So the purpose of this talk, guys, is for you to understand that by choosing certain processed foods and drinks with added sugars or other stuff that makes you feel really good really fast, so all these behaviors, they don't come for free, and it's not even about calories or possibly gaining weight at all. It's about that base level of happiness that you start experiencing. And I'm not talking about from some ivory tower or a hyperpotential understanding of the process. I'm talking about from the experience of a coach who worked with clients who used to eat more processed foods, who used to abuse certain substances, sometimes nicotine, sometimes alcohol, right? That would change their brain chemistry, and they would come to me not feeling all that happy. And they couldn't understand, like, why was it happening? And when we would start taking away certain foods and substances, they said, but I feel like it sucks. But that's exactly how it's going to feel once you start taking these substances away and kind of rewiring your brain back to its original state, where your base level of happiness and pleasure will get down regulated. So understand that those high dopamine hitting pleasurable substances and sometimes behaviors like, gambling or too much sex, they give you some reward really fast, but then in real life you start feeling like something is missing, and you start feeling anxious about that, and you're feeling not all this happy and more on the negative side, and also always seeking again for easy rewards, right? And you need it all now. A personal note, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm building something from scratch. And sometimes when I talk to other people who want to build their business or who want to build their independent career, sometimes they would complain that, well, it's not coming fast enough. And I realize that people somehow thought that being an entrepreneur, it's an instant success and pleasure right from the gate. Like, once you decide to become your own person and own your own business, like, you get the success right away. That's not actually how it works. And so that a false perception that everything should be easy and should just flow from get-go, from right away, without the struggle, the challenges, the learnings, the adjustments. And I believe, partially people started to believe that it's because we get so many dopamine hits and easy pleasures from likes on social media to all these processed foods that people think that this is how life goes. Like, if you ask our parents, no, this is not how life goes. The times before social media and all that much processed foods, that was not the life. And so just please understand that if you are seeking a lot of those foods and drinks with pleasure hits, and you feel like without them, life kind of sucks, understand that it's completely natural. And that's because of the changes in your brain chemistry and overall your blood chemistry and all the processes that happen in the body, but more specifically your brain chemistry is really affected in powerful ways. Understand that when you start wanting to quit those substances, life will suck at the beginning. It will feel like it sucks. It won't suck. Life is always kind of the same. You work on it, it gets better. You don't work on it, it doesn't get better. Life is very fair in that way. But do understand that when you start quitting all these foods and substances and sometimes other easy pleasure behaviors and things that you do in your life, like once you start trying to get out of that cycle, easy pleasure, life will feel like it sucks. But then after a while, sometimes it takes several weeks, sometimes it takes several months, sometimes even a year or maybe more, depending on how much you abused, for how long you abused your systems with easy pleasures and high dopamine hits. But guys, if you do want to develop your life in a meaningful way, from my experience, you do want to consider quitting that cycle of easy pleasures and instead trying to rewire your brain to get the satisfaction, the pleasure from working on hard things and making progress that doesn't come all that fast and all that easy, but it's just how life is. But then at the end, once you start learning to enjoy this hard process, your life actually gets quite pleasurable and quite happy. Not in a like super high dopamine hit happy, but no, you just get this feeling of satisfaction and daily well-being. And I think that's the answer to mental health crisis, not getting from one pleasure hit to another, removing one substance, but then finding something else to substitute it with, right? And there is no way around it. We gotta rewire our brain to enjoy the challenges, not just the high and fast hits, to enjoy life with everything that it has to offer. And that's how you become overall happy, chill, and smiley person who looks at life as a glass half full, not half empty. And that's how processed foods can make you quite a miserable overall person. So my advice, quit it. It's gonna suck, but you love it after all. If you have any questions about what you heard today, about your brain chemistry and how different foods and substances can be contributing to you literally feeling unhappy most of the time until you engage with those substances and behaviors. If you have any questions about that, maybe you'd like to learn about that, maybe you need to overcome something and you need to help with that, please get in touch. I might not be able to directly help you if you have really serious problems, but I will point you to the right resources and people and perhaps therapists to consider, etc. And you'll hear from me tomorrow. Until then, guys, enjoy the suck. Enjoy the struggle. That where true happiness and fulfillment for the lifetime actually is.